Nerd alert! Learning is important, right?
Yes, exactly. What a bunch of nerds.
Nerd alert!
Right. Hello, and welcome to The Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena and Jasper. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rob DeMars, the chief product architect of Misfits and Machines.
Ready to learn, Elena. Ready to learn.
Let's do it. We're back with your weekly Nerd Alert. Every week, I'll deep dive into academic marketing research and translate its complex ideas into simple, understandable language for Rob and, of course, for all of you. So, Rob, are you ready to nerd out?
I am ready.
As always, I'll link the research we cover in the episode notes. This week, I read The Role of Storytelling in the Creation of Brand Love, the PANDORA Case. This is by Patricia Dias and Rita Cavalheiro, both with the Catholic University of Portugal, and this was a recent one. It was published in 2021. I really wanted to find something about storytelling. We talk a lot about storytelling at our agency, and I'm excited to get into this one. But before I do, first, Rob, what would you say is your favorite brand of all time?
Oh, boy, I've got a couple. I sometimes when I think about how much I love a brand is, am I willing to buy a shirt with the logo on it? Like actually pay money to be an ad for someone else. And I have done that with a couple brands. Obviously, I love Apple. I stopped buying anything with an apple on it, though, when people thought I worked at an Apple store and asked me questions. But believe it or not, I was so into this note-taking application called Evernote that I bought one of their shirts, and I loved wearing it. So it just showed what a big nerd I was. So I'm going to actually go with that one, even though I've got others, but I'm going to go with Evernote.
I was hoping that Apple would be one of the ones that you mentioned, but why do you think you love Apple so much?
I think I love Apple for several reasons. I started off in advertising back in the 90s, and there were shirts back then, right as they started to become more successful, that said, I loved Apple when they were doomed. Because at one point in time, it was a business that was only for creatives, and it was a business that was really for the rebels. Steve Jobs would fly a pirate's flag above Cupertino. So it had that story behind it of the innovator and the rebel. And it almost was like the Harley Davidson of computers. And so there was just a love that I had for it back then. They also did just a great job with being simple in terms of an iconic logo that you don't even need the word to go with it. And you know what the brand is. So it almost became a tattoo. But I think ultimately it's kind of what it stood for me, which was back in the day. One might argue they're sort of becoming the Microsoft of the current computer landscape. But back in the day, they were the tool for the rebel. And you know me, I'm such a rebel, Elena.
I'm so glad you answered that the way you did. You set me up really well, which Rob almost never does, but I ask him setup questions. But this one, it worked because I was hoping you'd say Apple, and that one of the reasons you'd say you love them is because of their story, because I think that definitely plays a huge role in why you love them so much. I'd go so far as to say it's hard for any of us to have love for a brand without a strong story being attached to it. Either a story of the brand and how they came to be, or how that brand plays a role in our lives, because brand love is so hard to attain and storytelling is so powerful. So let's talk about the study. The researchers wanted to understand the role storytelling plays in creating love for a brand. Previous research had already demonstrated that storytelling creates an emotional connection to brands, it enhances engagement, and it drives word of mouth. Research had also already found what leads to brand love and the benefits that brand love brings, like engagement and loyalty. But despite clear connections between storytelling and brand love, no study had explored whether storytelling directly leads to brand love. Before we get into the research, the authors define brand love and storytelling, so we'll review that. But first, I want to acknowledge that brand love is sometimes a debated topic in marketing. So Rob, how do you feel about brand love, just as a general concept?
I think it makes a lot of sense that whether you call it love or affinity or connection, or, when you break down the word love, something that you love is relatable, it shares your values, and it increases your desire to act. And so I think it's an appropriate word. It seems a little bit extreme, brand love, but I guess when you think about what love is and what it means to you and how you achieve love and the things that go into it, I think it's a fair concept.
Well, let's talk about how they define it because that might help. They define brand love as the degree of passionate and emotional attachment a satisfied customer has to a brand. It's a relationship that's built when there's passion, attachment, positive evaluation, positive emotion, and declarations of love for a brand. It might also include identifying with a brand, trusting that brand, and being committed to it. So it follows that the most important consequence of brand love is loyalty, but word of mouth is also an important byproduct of brand love. So they take more of like a general definition of brand love, which I can get more behind than like the other times you talk about brand love and people are just obsessed. It's their whole lives. It's like, no, people care more about themselves, but I can see how like this type of brand love is out there. Let's talk about storytelling. Rob, another surprise question for you. How much do you think about storytelling when you're creating an advertisement?
Well, I think storytelling is a critical part of any advertisement, as long as, again, I guess the story is relevant. I think oftentimes storytelling gets deployed just for the sake of storytelling, and then we become joke tellers and not really storytellers. And how is that story connecting back to the brand values? Is it speaking to the brand promise? Is it delivering on that at the end of the day? Then it becomes a critical relationship that you're creating on the air between someone's memory and the brand.
Right. I like that. So it's storytelling's powerful, but it's not enough to just have a good story. It has to bring you back to the brand. Well, let's talk about why we love stories. We, aka humans, we've communicated through stories forever. We tend to think narratively. Stories help us remember things. They make us happy. We identify with them. They help with clarity. And brands love storytelling for all those reasons. Plus, stories help make us emotionally connected to a brand and we're more easily persuaded by them. You'll see brands use storytelling through origin stories, myths, or certain celebrities. You might notice some commercials go through a classic story structure. They set up a situation, they confront a conflict, and then they resolve the story. These authors wanted to answer two research questions. First, does using storytelling as a communication technique contribute to the development of brand love? And second, does integrating storytelling in products contribute to the development of brand love? So they're looking at communication and then products. They chose Pandora as a case study because the brand is known for incorporating storytelling into its jewelry, making each piece symbolize personal stories, memories, or milestones. They targeted loyal Pandora customers, reasoning that these individuals would most likely exhibit brand love. These participants were chosen based on their ownership of multiple Pandora pieces and engagement with the brand's social media. This sample included 20 participants selected to provide a mix of ages, locations, and lifestyles within Portugal, ensuring a diverse range of perspectives. These interviews were conducted face-to-face, and they lasted about 52 minutes each. Here's what they found. The storytelling part of Pandora's communication and products were seen as central to building emotional connections with the brand. This connection was further strengthened by the symbolic value associated with the jewelry, representing memorable moments or personal values. All the participants recognized and appreciated Pandora's use of storytelling in its marketing efforts and the narratives associated with its products. The research underscored that storytelling contributed significantly to the love consumers felt for Pandora. The study also found brand love led to increased loyalty, with participants expressing intentions to continue purchasing Pandora products. Positive word of mouth was another significant outcome, with all participants recommending Pandora to others. Participants also showed a willingness to pay more for Pandora products. So, in conclusion, the researchers found that storytelling, both as a part of Pandora's brand communication and through its products, provides a pivotal role in creating and enhancing brand love. I've got the Rob GPT summary. This study looks at how storytelling affects people's love for a brand, focusing on Pandora. The idea is to see if telling stories through brand communication, like ads, and the products themselves, like the stories behind jewelry pieces, can make people feel more attached to and affectionate towards the brand. It turns out, yes, storytelling does make a big difference. People who buy this jewelry often attach personal stories and meanings to their pieces, which makes them love the jewelry and the brand even more. This emotional connection adds value to the products and the brand, making storytelling a powerful tool for building brand love. So, in essence, the study found that storytelling is not just about promoting products, it's about creating meaningful connections that make people cherish the brand, encouraging loyalty, and even causing them to pay more for the brand. All right, Rob, what do you think about that one?
That was a lot. I think it's an interesting case study in Pandora because they've done such a good job at creating a story within the product itself. I think so oftentimes we borrow story and place it onto a product and hope that resonates. And sometimes that feels disingenuous. versus the whole idea behind their product is sort of storytelling through jewelry. So it's just so organic. It's a great example. I'm trying to think of other brands that have done such a good job in terms of the product experience being a story.
I was wondering that too. I think Liquid Death is maybe a good example. Where
that's a good one.
Like the name and the packaging, like everything from the beginning told this story about rebelling from traditional water. And they did a lot of sponsorships at big sporting events. And like they're trying to tell this story of these intense athletic people drink Liquid Death. And also, you know what else I thought of? We used to sell stuffies, which are stuffed animals with magical secret pockets. And I remember at one point you wrote storytelling books to go along with each stuffy. And the story around that brand was all about it's what's inside that counts. And I know you referenced that throughout the commercial. So I thought maybe Stuffies was a good example of a brand that used story.
That is a good example. It was inherent within the product because it had all of these pockets and you could put things inside of it. And therefore, building on that from an emotional standpoint just became natural and not as forced. You brought up Liquid Death, which is super interesting. So Steve at Marketing Architects, our chief creative officer, worked with the gentleman who started Liquid Death. And it actually came out of an assignment of trying to get people to drink more water and make water a more important lifestyle choice. And I can't remember exactly how this worked out, but they would go to like Rockstar, the energy drink. They have those tall boys and they'd have all these events. And the rock stars on stage would actually fill up their Rockstar cans with water because they would get sick of drinking all that crap, but they still want it to be cool and everything else. And so that was part of the genesis of the story behind it. At least that's what I believe I heard. And I'm about 50% correct in everything that I remember.
I heard their CEO on a podcast a little while ago, and he was saying he was an advertising person and he was looking for a category that didn't have a strong brand or maybe a strong story. And water is one of those that you don't really see brands doing a lot of advertising. Like you kind of have these classic water brands, but he thought he could have an opportunity to use advertising in a category, which reminds me of why we created the Hurricane, because we thought there's no brand in walking canes. Now that I'm thinking about brands, I think Iron Man also is a brand that uses story quite a bit. And I guess when you participate in that brand, you're also developing some kind of a story. So that could be one.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, all good things. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Ayana Klaphocky for producing the show and Taylor De Los Reyes for editing. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you find the show valuable, please leave us a rating and review. And if you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to our weekly email newsletter. It's built for marketers seeking research-first analysis of the latest trends. You can go to marketingarchitects.com/newsletter to subscribe. Now go forth and build great marketing. And previous research had also already found that what leads to brand love and the benefits that brand love bring. Oh my goodness, I just butchered that. Let me start over.